I am an optimist. I'm especially an optimist about Canada, about our collective ability as a country to identify what are our big challenges, that when we have a national problem of this magnitude, the federal government has to respond. We have to be there. We have to be playing a central role. And that is why at the end of the day, I am optimistic. We're going to find ways from coast to coast to coast to work together to meet the housing challenge.
I'd be much obliged. So the Alberta government is taking umbrage with your approach to funding these kinds of housing projects. They're saying that you're not consulting the provinces on the design of the programs, that the strings attached are going to make it harder to build and more expensive to build. They're saying that you're playing politics with housing, and they're saying that there's no measures to ensure that the funding is distributed fairly, like per capita, evenly across Canada. So I'm wondering how you respond to some of these concerns.
Well, there's a lot of concerns you got in there, Janet. So it was Janet, right? Yeah. Let me take a first shot at it. Where I want to start is by recognizing that we have a real housing crisis. We've just heard from Amarjeet about the housing crisis in Edmonton, and I hear the same thing everywhere I go across the country, from coast to coast to coast. Canadians have an entirely reasonable expectation that when we have a national problem of this magnitude, the federal government has to respond. We have to be there. We have to be playing a central role. We cannot do it on our own. We recognize that for Canada to meet our housing challenge, we need everybody working together. We need the federal government, we need provinces and territories, we need municipalities, we need the private sector, we need the public sector. We all have to do this together. But we as a federal government know we have to be there playing a central role. We also recognize that we as a country can't just keep on going the way we have been on housing. There is a reason we haven't been getting enough homes built fast enough. And a big part of that reason is red tape. It is the fact that it has been too hard to get gentle density built in our municipalities. It is parking requirements which can add $50,000, $100,000 to the cost of apartments across the country. So we recognize there is a crisis, and we recognize that means we have to do things differently, and we are absolutely committed to driving that change. We believe in working with municipalities, we believe in working with provinces, and the Canada Builds program that I announced today is inspired by exactly that. We came up with it because we have such a great collaboration with BC on BC Builds. So, I am an optimist. I'm especially an optimist about Canada, about our collective ability as a country to identify what are our big challenges and to rally around working together to address them. And that is why at the end of the day, I am optimistic. We're going to find ways from coast to coast to coast to work together to meet the housing challenge. And I'm going to give you one specific example, et après ça en français, mais plus vite. And the specific example is early learning and childcare. When we announced our intention to build a national program of early learning and childcare, the response was positive and enthusiastic, but also extremely skeptical. The smart reporter would say, well, it's a great idea, but it's never going to happen. And yet, we now have agreements on early learning and childcare with every single province and territory. we are getting childcare down to $10 a day in many, many parts of the country, and it is at least 50% less expensive than it was when we started.